Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of 2.5 Salesmen. I'm your host Mario, together with my dashing looking host Giulio, who from last week is now 18 years old, can run 2 consecutive marathons back to back, and I don't know, bench presses 400 pounds on a Sunday.
I'm basically Brian Johnson on steroids. Excellent. Thanks for the intro, usual Mario.
Cool. Today's guest is a accomplished coach, sales coach, author, CEO and founder of Brindis. He wrote 2 books, Hybrid Selling and Selling Through Partnership Skills. Fred. Hey, Fred. Welcome to the 2.5 Salesman podcast.
Thank you. I feel like a bit of a gooseberry sat between you two. I'm just going to let you carry on. Sit here quietly. Don't mind me.
The candle, yeah?
Oh, yeah. So today's topics is a very, very interesting one. It involves ethical selling within the startup selling community, right? And there are a lot of implications. Well, you should always be ethical, right? But what we will try to analyze is what happens and why it happens when shit hits the fan, right? So Fred, maybe some like intro words. What you've had a coaching practice for a lot of years. So what are you seeing from that specific?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it annoys me that we have to talk about this, to be honest. It's not a podcast I want to do.
Okay. So the next
let's put that out there now. But it's stupid that we do, really, that you kind of, yeah, you're right. Selling Through Partnership Skills, that's my first book because I'd gone around the world. I'd seen what people are doing. I'd seen the challenges. We need to think like partners. We need to be more collaborative in the way we work. Hybrid selling, bring other skills in, make yourself more accomplished as a salesperson, have all these things that you can do. Now we should be concentrating on this, except now I'm finding myself drawn towards like, we're having to look at what ethical selling is, what it means to get salespeople doing the right thing. And it's just like, this is nuts that we're having to do this now. We whinge about, oh, sales has got a bad reputation, blah, 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 blah. We bloody deserve it sometimes,
Well, I would argue that that's always been the case because of the minority of the people doing bad things.
Minority? I don't think.
I would say I would actually say minority. Well, let's define bad things then.
Let's define minority.
Educated guess, I would say 10%, maybe less. I've been in sales for over 20 years, man. I maybe had 2 or 3 guys that were like full-on assholes, like just lie to sell, like not even embellish or exaggerate, just lie so they can sell shit. Maybe 2 or 3.
I would agree 10% is the real bad, right?
Yeah,
but then you still have all the ones that it's very dark gray, it's like, well, you don't mention to the client the cheapest option. What if they pick that, like that type of situation? And that's like still.
Oh, look, I know I'm sending out a ton of emails that aren't very well written, but it's dead easy to press a button and send out 10,000 rather than like 10 good ones. But yeah, it's all right, really, isn't it?
But that's more lazy, right? I think that's more lazy.
And not knowing. I am still I have a very optimistic outlook on it, where if a rep knew how to write good emails, they would write good emails. I would say that this is a problem with coaching.
No, Mario, I know how to write good emails. I just find it terribly boring. So no, I don't know. I'm living proof that that's not it.
You just do calls, man.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's less boring.
Well, but that's interesting. Or it's one knows how to write good emails. That the knowledge is out there, except companies won't train the salespeople to do it, or if they train it, they won't enforce them or do something like that. So, look, I'm not talking about the real bad, corrupt stuff. We can't do anything about them; they will exist. But there's just stuff which is just a little bit manky. It's not really what customers like. We probably know at heart of hearts they don't like it. We could do a little bit better, but we don't. And it's that stuff where if ethics is a code of like kind of conduct, it's some principles that we say, hey, look, this is good stuff. This is what good really looks like. Yeah, based on kind of what customers want and what works. So let's adhere to this. That's where I'm coming out with ethical selling. And it's just about, let's just up our game and be a bit better. That's where I'm coming out with ethics.
I think, okay, if I had to put things in perspective, and I 100% agree with you, Freddie, I think the problem is, how many salespeople, for example, on percentage, are going to try and sell something they think a customer doesn't really need, but they might try it anyway? And that, I think we start talking about very different percentages.
Yeah, I think that would be the definition of unethical selling, right?
Yeah,
People doing shit at this discovery, right? Not doing their homework, not digging deep enough, and then trying to push something on the client. I would agree that that's unethical. Yes.
And
which part is unethical then? Is not doing good discovery the root cause, the unethical piece?
No.
Because again, we know how to do this well. We can understand how to ask questions better. We can help people think. Is that the unethical piece? Could be part of it. Is it what I did find out is that they need cold call training, but I don't really do that. So what I'll do is I'm going to train them in proposal writing, because that sort of fits and it's still quite good. Whereas really the best option
I'll just say cold
calling
calling is dead. I'll just say cold calling is dead.
Just say cold calling is dead.
But you know what I mean? It's like, well, what I'm giving them, it's kind of okay, but it's not really what they want. And if I was proper about it, I'd say, look, what I think you guys need is this. This is maybe a better place for you to go. Then come along and we can start tackling this. So there's just, it is shades of grey, and there's these tiny little things, but they stack up, don't they? Marginal difference, and we go bigger, 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 bigger. Actually, you've done lots of tiny things, not so good. The whole approach is a little bit off.
Okay, could we say then, like, let's go really philosophically and stoic. Could we say that if you're not living up to what you know is the expected standard, because you technically can't do wrong if you don't know it's wrong, but if you know you should be doing better, you don't, then it's unethical.
Well, there is a saying that says, not knowing the law doesn't absolve you from the consequences of the state.
But there's no law around selling.
Of course. Well, ask Elizabeth Holmes that.
You've got extreme on us again. You're desperate to focus in on these really bad people, aren't you? It's funny, Mario. 1 minute you're really glass half full, and the next you're like, right down there in the deep depths.
I would, so in the aforementioned example, right? So I would say it's not unethical if you don't know, because a lot of us didn't know when we began.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. That's literally what you can't get wrong what you don't know. It's also why children don't usually go to jail, because we are discussing, they don't have the faculty to know what's right and wrong, right? That's unless you're in the US, and then everything goes.
Yeah.
So then the point is, I mean, and right and wrong, it's kind of almost that's more like a moral argument, but we know what good looks like. We know what customers want. We know what kind of those laws, if we want to call them those, are. And just because an individual doesn't know them, I mean, the company should, and the company can prepare the individual so they don't go to jail, so they don't kind of end up doing the stuff which people don't like. And this is why it's sad that we're having to talk about this stuff, in that really that should just be part and parcel of it. But we're kind of coming back and go, hey guys, let's focus back in on what's our code? How should we be doing this stuff? And I'm going to keep repeating it because this is the point, and I think it's where people miss it. Because customers want it, and it's the best way to do it. So really, it's a no-brainer to be ethical.
But it's
people push away from it.
It's I would say I think you kind of touched where the responsibility actually is, and it is within the company, specifically the company leadership. Right? I would argue that that is where the responsibility lies, right? Because if you bring in younglings will behave like the incumbents, and incumbents will behave whatever the management allows them to, or you will go through a lengthy hiring process. And Julio knows this. He's been a recruiter for a long time. And then you would get asked or assessed most of the time in a very shitty way. So once you get in with your whatever the skill level is, okay, have my skill level been assessed properly?
I mean, but look, here what we're talking about is whether the burden is on leadership or not, right?
Yeah.
Which I think we can all agree that if the leadership is unethical, it's borderline impossible that the sellers can be ethical.
But if it's lazy to the point of discovery and then pushing the products, so if it's lazy, if they don't want to invest in enablement or coaches or proper onboarding.
But we go back to first point. They're not living up to the expectations they know. Laziness at that point becomes unethical, right? Because you the moment we talk about lazy, everyone that's lazy knows they're being lazy, right?
For me, it is top down. It is top down. That isn't that what a leader's there to do? To lead, to get people doing stuff in the right way, and so preparing them to do that. Now, if they're saying, "Well, I know there's a right," but maybe they don't know there's a right way. Different question now. But yeah, this is the right way. But actually, we're not going to do it like that because I don't think it works, and I think my odd little way is better. Okay, then you are unethical because you're making a conscious decision, or I can't really bother to find it out. So it's it starts from the top. It starts from the top, and hopefully people will get it and go, right, this stuff works better. Why would I not prepare my people to do this unless they don't believe that it works better? And then that's another re-education piece, isn't it?
Right. I would argue that people get stuck in their heads. That would be kind of number one. They can't see what is outside of them. They only have this very. I always compare it to going through a world like this, but you have like a very small opening here, right? That you see, and everything is dark and foggy. This is how most people go through life, with exceptions, right? So
I'm not convinced by two things. The first one is that I think, Fred, you're right. This way works better, but only if you see sales as your lifelong profession, right? And with so many people walking about in sales and not really wanting to stick around and hoping they'll find something else at a certain point, problem number one. Problem number two, I would say, is top down, but it's a little bit like saying you're working in a prison where the warden is a dick. And if you decide to keep working in that prison, you're doing something wrong, right? So at a certain point, the burden also goes into the seller, right? That would be my thinking.
But if in this situation, these sellers have families to feed. Not all of them have family money or like hundreds of thousands of euros, dollars, pounds, whatever in savings. So they can't just quit a job. Most of the people are stuck in their jobs.
Man, look, I'm sorry, but how many people can't change jobs these days, realistically, after COVID? Like, in sales, if you're in your job, it's because you're scared of leaving your job, I think. But again, blanket statement, probably wrong. But Fred, what do you think?
No, it's interesting.
Be the arbiter.
Because there is this. Well, no, there's this made-up figure, isn't there? I think we were chatting about it one time, Julia. I can't remember whether it was on a podcast or off air or something. Like 42% of people in sales don't want to be in sales. I mean, that is literally plucked out the air.
Yeah,
I think the guy who made it up has admitted to making it up. He just thought it sounds like a good number. I think so. I think he's why 42. Oh, because it's the answer to the universe.
From the galaxy.
I think I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's admitted to just making this thing up because he wants to make a point about something.
Wow. And everyone believed it. That's the funniest part.
80% of statistics are made up.
Yeah.
Even that one. Yeah.
But then we kind of got oh people. But let's say it was true, and people are like, oh, I'm doing this job, I don't really like it. Why? Because it's sleazy and it's not a nice thing to do. That well, there we go. Let's make it not sleazy and a good thing to do and noble. And people going, hey, this is a really great thing that you do. You help people to think. You get their problems
All right.
sorted. You you're providing a valuable service to people. Well, what an awesome job
Well,
you've got. Rather than
look, there
poor you
is
in sales. Never mind.
there is a thing called and I love this show, and you guys can guess from what show it is, but they present it as a like a circle of screaming, but it's more like a chain of screaming, right? So what I mean by that is you have a VC that needs to perform. So VC has his own like stakeholders that where he raised the money from, right? So the VC invests in a company, and then the pressure that comes from over there through the VC goes to the sales leadership. If we are talking about ethical sales and startups, right? So the VC pressures the CEO, the pressures the VP sales and everyone there. And then that pressure gets to the sales floor altogether to perform.
True.
So it's let's say chain of pressure instead of chain of screaming, right? But you get my point, right? So the pressure just keeps small, like keeps going and gets transferred. And in the end, as with everyone, the common folk, the in this case the sales floor, gets to foot the bill of the pressure.
See, I totally understand where you're coming from on that. I mean, that's talked about pretty widely, isn't it? Where I think there might be a mistake in the thinking is that the unethical selling behavior ends up selling you more short term anyway. Now, we know that ethical sales will give you a longer term, more consistent success and kind of build the relationships, and it's there, makes life easier. But why is it going to necessarily make your short term successes any better? Because actually, if you're doing the stuff, which is listening to people correctly and understanding what they need, and then being able to present stuff related back to their needs and doing all the good stuff, why can't that help you close straight away anyway? So there's kind of like I think, a false piece of thinking in that. The like Wolf of Wall Street or whoever it is to try to smash all these deals straight away. Well, why can't you do that well?
I'm gonna give you this my simple view on this, playing devil's advocate, is that to become that type of a salesperson probably takes 100 effort, and then you're gonna start getting 20% results, let's say, right? Let's make it simple: 20% close rate, but it'll take 100 effort. Or you could put 20 effort and get 10% close rate. And that's
you will not get a 10% close with 20% effort. No way.
Oh man, I mean, I don't know, man. Again, but also it depends what is it you do, right?
Oh yeah, I was just about to say that. Depends on the product, depends on the industry, depends on a lot.
If you're working in commoditized financial products, you know, like, which is just you make 1,000 calls and you push the right person at the right time. Yeah,
I did a like a very short workshop for a bank like here in Serbia, and so I do it and I talk about sales and what is happening in the world of B2B sales. It just goes over their heads. And one of their salespeople just asked me, well, how do we implement all of this that you said? This is all brilliant, but how do we implement? And I say, well, instead of just looking at risk and giving out money, maybe try to be helpful. Maybe try to teach him how to make a business plan, how to live the business plan, teach him or pay for like sales workshops or education so that your clients actually become better. But it was just like
just going over there.
Let me chip a question in then, because we took these kind of funny numbers that you're using there, which I get what you're saying. It's fair to say then it's harder to open doors in sales now, probably than ever before. Is that a reasonable statement to say? Again, don't say not if you're brilliant like me, Julio.
No, but
he was just leaning forward straight to the camera.
Look,
it's considered harder work to get conversations going these days. There we go. How about that? Is that fair?
I don't know, man. I think every look, when I was younger, and I was working in sales, you could probably like, it was easier to do cold calls, but you wouldn't have mobile numbers. So you would have to go for reception. So you had different problems. I don't think this is so radically changed, to be honest. I think it's just that we feel it's more difficult because you have to learn different skills compared to what it was before. But it's just moving. I don't think it's becoming harder, per se.
Do you not think it's more noisy? There's more people trying. There's people using kind of the lazy, the automated, the kind of the quick fix methods, and customers are under more pressure than ever before. And they're thinking, oh, I really don't want to make a mistake here. And I'm trying to sort stuff out, and I haven't got time to risk talking to somebody who's an idiot and not bringing any value to me. And so I'm just going to head down and look for the information myself and sort it out.
I mean, look,
that's how I see stuff going on at the moment, particularly in the areas I work.
I would say we live in a data age, which means that sales data that was previously reserved for the very, very select few is now available to everyone. That's number one. Number two, there is a lot of noise when it comes to sales materials, sales books, podcasts.
Yeah. I was literally thinking like a lot of people.
So apart from the data economy, we live in unprecedented times of content generation, right? And now if you include large language models, then we did just exponential, right? So I would say the life of a average rep is much harder than it was before mobiles, before internet, like infinitely times harder.
And so the reason I'm saying that, go on. I'll let Jude have his argument. I'll say why
I'm sorry, but I'm thinking I was dialing numbers one by one like this, and now I click a button, and it'll call like 20, 30 people in a row, right? I was typing people one by one on LinkedIn. So I think it's different type of expert. And if we want to look at it overall, I will look at a different way. I'm looking at the overall economy. It's harder to sell when the economy is in a crisis, 100%, because everyone is scared and we humans are influenced by this.
Well, depending on who is doing
it depends also what you sell. Because if you sell sales training in a crisis, it's great. Because everyone's like, oh yeah, we need someone to fix this problem. But generally, people are more conservative. So I think that's the way I look at it. But I think it's different, and it's different skill set. It's probably harder to master skill set. This I would agree. That's I don't know if that makes sense.
So it's interesting. We talk about machines, we're talking about skills, we're talking about all this kind of stuff as the way to cut through the noise, which is noisier. So yeah, okay. What if we had something up our sleeve, which was our reputation? And I'm going to go with that old-fashioned word rather than personal brand, but that reputation that this person, what they do is right. You know, they are ethical, they are useful, they are valuable. And if you can get that sorted, is that going to open more doors for you anyway? And you don't need all that assistance. It's just kind of like, yeah, work with that person. They're the go-to. They won't let you down. They won't have your trousers down. They won't do stuff that's going to put you at risk. They're the person you want to work with. Yeah. And so that's what I'm thinking. If we concentrate on the ethical selling piece and become known for that, and that's our approach, that's our way, that's where we can make our lives so much easier, opening the door. Then when we're actually working with customers, again, that reputation precedes you. They'll work better with you. You can start to get to the point of collaboration faster. You can do a whole load more stuff because this is how you do stuff. But they're not pushing away and feeling a little bit, well, I'm going to sort of work with you, but not quite, because I'm not quite sure. I'm feeling a bit scared.
But this is simply reputation, right? As in, you only get a return of business if you can, if your customers trust you. Otherwise, you don't get a return of business. I think the baseline to get a return of business is you have to be ethical, or at least perceived to be ethical. Let's put it this way. So, and that's never changed. I don't think. Like it's not a new
I would
thing.
argue that that's been a constant over long.
Yeah, like it's maybe easier these days to build a personal brand compared to Well, look, I know a lot of people with great personal brands that when you talk to them, they're assholes.
And Scheiße.
They don't have a personal brand then.
Oh, no,
They have
no,
a
but
profile.
Being
it's the
being an
public.
asshole is a personal brand.
Profile is different to but
Yeah.
personal brand. 3 bits to it: purpose, practice, profile. Anyone can build a profile. Anyone can get
This can be the
carousels
tagline
and
for
videos and stuff. It's your
Julia.
purpose and the way you do stuff that really start to build a brand. But anyway, that's
Julia, this could be the tagline for our podcast. Personal branding is shit.
it's dead. We've killed 2 things in this podcast straight away. Marvelous. Let's keep going. Nothing left by the end.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Let's see what else we can kill by the end. But okay, let's go back to ethical selling, then let's go back to, like, I think what you're talking about is, what is good about it is that for many, many years, probably since sales was invented, the logic of you're a closer was more important than you're a good ethical seller. And I think it's the first time in the history of sales where you start to have a lot of people talking about ethical selling as a good thing compared to Grant Cardone, Dan Locke, and all this. You got to close every Jordan Belfort, all these like master closers. Essentially, this is what the way I would think about it.
The closing, the alpha male, all that kind of stuff. Alpha female, I don't know if it's such a thing, but you know, what I mean, it's all this dramatic, isn't it? Sexy.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's what
Yeah.
people
It
buy
is
into.
sexy, yeah.
And so it perpetuates this kind of thing. And of course, that's why when I sort of said earlier, we probably deserve that image. We do, because we're still saying that sort of stuff. It's still out there. The kind of, we'll just do things right and be decent and sort of listen to people and help them think and generally sort stuff without massive drama. It's like, it's not so cool, is it? Well, it should be. Let's try to make that cool rather than all that I'm a tiger type nonsense.
I mean, you talked about this. We were talking about Harvey from Suits, right? And which is a good example of he's actually a very strong person, and he's just looking like a lawyer.
Well, he calls himself the best closer, right? So
yeah, but they never mention the word sales, right? There's not a single time in the old thing.
Well, he's a lawyer, man.
yeah, but which again is something on its own. But what's interesting as well is that in what you see Harvey do a lot of throughout the seasons, he bullies the opponents, right?
But
and that's
he walks a very fine line between what's ethical and pushing for the close.
He is not ethical. If I had to describe Harvey, he's not an ethical seller. No, he's most of the time he's got his own interest apart, like above everything else. Right?
Damn it! I have to rewatch that show.
The whole show is built on a lie. Did you not know? Did you not know his mate isn't a lawyer?
Oh,
In
yeah, okay.
Episode 1,
Mike
we find out
he
didn't go to Harvard.
Spoiler alert! Hey,
don't stop in that one.
Yeah. So
need to put in a description of the podcast. We will ruin Suits for you.
I'm pretty sure it's episode 1, so you don't.
I know. I'm joking.
But yeah. So I think we're starting to get to the point where it's becoming cool to also be a nice person, and I think Gen Z is the first generation in ever that actually starts to look at companies and be, well, these companies are full of assholes. They don't do anything for the environment, and we don't want to work for them. Or this company is discriminatory. So we're starting to get to the point that social media is actually doing something positive, which is acting as an equalizer, well, to some extent, of what is ethically accepted. At least that's my impression.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, CSR, social responsibility, is a big thing in many cases, and again, I think kind of companies I'm working with very often, they're almost very often. Sometimes they're using that as a way in, saying, "Hey, look, working with us, we're going to help you hit those objectives, those KPIs that you will have." Because the solution you're looking for, anyone can do it. Yeah. To be fair. But this is, working with us and the way that we do it, we can actually do that in that way. So yeah, I mean that's where I'm thinking that we do need to speak about it more. Whether I'm being kind of a bit spiky and because we bloody deserve to, we have to because we deserve the reputation we've got, or it's just a smart thing to do. So apart from best practice and what customer wants, it's actually going to be part of your solution. because again, we do know this, and I don't think these are made up numbers. I can't remember the numbers anyway, so it doesn't matter. But we know that the buying experience is often the differentiator, because people are selling something that's so similar. It's just the way in which you help the customer navigate that journey, get their head around stuff. That's the bit that's going to set you apart. And when you kind of model ethical selling and the bits that you need to do to achieve that, well, actually, they're the things which are people going to say, yeah, that's actually pretty cool working with you. I like this. It's good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
The road less traveled.
Well, I mean, the other thing that's what you mentioned, I don't know if it's ever going to happen. That's the dream, is that you'll get to the point that, and probably going back to the initial question, why salespeople perceive so bad is because there's so many of them that are asses, right? And then if you get to the point that the majority is positive, you get singled out a lot more as a bad pass, I guess, right? And then like that will influence the overall average, I would say. That's something else is coming to my mind when we're talking about doing this more.
Look, I would argue the bottom line to this discussion is ethical selling, or let's just call it selling, right, will become quote unquote a thing when, number one, the closers and the bad actors begin to be vilified and not glorified. Number two, maybe with legislation, but I will not get my
That's not going to happen.
And peer pressure. So until you have, until we stop glorifying and we introduce peer pressure, I would argue us three can talk about it all day, but nothing will change.
But that's really what I find hopeful, is that I do think that the new generations, I think when Gen Z, I don't think a lot of Gen Z will be so happy working in an environment they perceive as unethical. And they seem to have a much higher bar for what is ethical compared to millennials. At least I'm looking at myself and looking at the clients I work with, etc. But it just seems to be a better generation from the collectivism perspective.
It would be a dream if that kind of salesperson, that kind of behavior was vilified. Now, I think that is a big stretch of the imagination.
Yes.
Is it less accepted? Is it proven to be less successful that people not want to work with those salespeople, so they start to get that actually this stuff isn't a good idea anymore? I think that's well within grasp. I like to think that's in grasp pretty quickly, actually, through the education piece and saying, hey guys, look, you realize this stuff don't work. There is a better way out there. And I mean, a better way in many levels, if that makes sense.
Before we wrap it up, let me just comment quickly. The problem is when you go and listen to these guys that Julio mentioned, especially the obsession with Jordan Belfort, they say some things that sound right.
Yes.
That sound proper.
But it's bloody Andrew Tate is the same.
But it's kind of, well, there is a phenomenal, I encourage everyone listening, and you two as well, find a podcast called Behind the Bastards. Awesome podcast, and listen to the episode of Jordan Peterson, right? So they took that, it's a 2-part episode where they analyze how he uses universally accepted statements and then plugs in whatever harmful right-wing rhetoric there is within it. So to your point, Andrew Tate does it. And so do these guys. They say a lot of things that sound right.
Yeah.
And then they interwove the ideology or crap.
But that's the negative of the personal brand, right? Is that once you build a following,
but your average Joe will not notice that, and a lot of kids will not notice that.
Of course, but that's what I'm saying. Like once you build a following, confirmation bias will kick in,
Oh,
and
yeah,
you'll be like, well,
100%.
I like this person, I trust what they say,
Yeah.
and then they'll come up with something a bit worse, and then a bit worse. That's how a lot of dictators got into power. Very few started with, oh, let's kill everyone. They started, no, we want to free everyone from their lives, but they just never mentioned the last part.
If you ever read Lovecraft, I've been saying that, oh, Cthulhu, he's here to save you from life and bring you painful and miserable death. All hail Cthulhu, our savior and chief.
Awesome.
Cool.
Fred, any last comments?
Any
before
last comments?
We sum it up.
This is good. I mean, it's a tough one. It's not as easy as is cold calling dead or is social selling dead or is it whatever, because it's like we can put the proof out and go, well, it's not because bang, finished. Okay. But because there are so many grey areas, I think just by getting the conversation going, and if people are just listening to this and sort of thinking, hang on a minute, is what I'm doing right? Is it for good? Could I be doing this slightly better? I mean, my thing, I kind of say it everywhere I go, is like, for me, selling is all about good people doing good things in a good way. You can translate that on so many different levels. It's like having the best salespeople you can. So you recruit well. Yeah, good things. Well, yeah, they've got good practice, they've got good process, and a good way. They do it time and time again. But I think it can go deeper than that. It's people who are inherently good, decent, who are trying to get the right kind of outputs and the right kind of outcomes and things which have an impact and a difference. And if we can start bringing that into the way that we work, then I think we are in a better place. And sales probably doesn't get the stick it gets at the moment, but at the same time we're more successful. So a little bit of a quest that I'm on at the moment.
No, it's a good quest. It's a good quest to be into. Absolutely.
Okay. So every guest we have, we will give you like a 30 second promo. So whatever you want to promote, be our guest, and let's wrap it up.
Oh, what? So to camera?
Yes. Well, however you want it. You
Okay.
can go
Well,
naked.
if you want to,
You can,
You can sell whatever you want right now, basically.
sell everything.
Oh, that kind of promo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buy all my stuff.
Nothing legal. Legal, Fred.
Yeah.
Oh, ethical, obviously. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, guys, is rather than kind of pitch a whole bunch of stuff, because I do a bunch of different things, what I'll do is, can you guys put a link to a scorecard in the show notes?
Yes, we can put a link to anything, I suppose.
Okay, so if I send you that link and this scorecard, I mean, I talk about ethical selling, I talk about collaborative selling most of the time. So here is 30 odd questions, takes about 5 minutes to answer, give you some bit of reflection, but then it creates a personalized report, which will talk to you about kind of how you're doing things and then some of the areas in which you can start to pick up on and start to do things a little bit better. So, and that's all based around thinking like
yeah, like if you
really
send it to me as well, like I'll once we post this, well, I'll show it on my LinkedIn as well.
No problem. Yep. Fred,
Good.
thank you very much. This was a very lovely episode. You were a very gracious and very nice guest. Thank you for joining us here. And to all of you, thanks for watching. And until next time, have a great week, guys.
Enjoy. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.